Who's giving me the high sign? Good evening and welcome to the Planning Commission meeting of July 16, 2020. My name is Gary Hirsch and I am the chairperson of the commission. The Planning Commission is a citizen body appointed by the City Council. The commission is empowered to make final decisions on certain matters, with those being appealable to the City Council. On other matters, the commission acts in an advisory role to the council, with the council making a final decision. You will have an opportunity to address the commission during the public hearing portion of the meeting this evening, and your testimony is very much appreciated and encouraged. I'd like to make everyone aware that this meeting is being televised live on the City of Glendale's Facebook and YouTube pages, as well as Glendale's own Channel 11. During normal times, the Planning Commission usually meets in City Council chambers at City Hall, where we're in all one room. Due to the public health pandemic, we have been moved our meeting to the Glendale Civic Center this evening. Another change is that the commission is in one ballroom, while the public is in the ballroom next door on the other side of this wall, so that we can follow the CDC guidelines of 6-foot social distancing. For those members of the public in the ballroom next door, there is a video screen and speakers set up so that you can see and hear us live. I also want you to know that there's a camera in the middle of the public's room so that we can see all of you live on a big screen in our room. If you have submitted a speaker card and indicated you wish to speak on an agenda item this evening, the chair will allow you time to make your way to this room and to the podium so you can speak in person. This evening, we'll be allowing 5 minutes for each speaker. Thank you for your understanding and your patience. The commission acts from a written agenda. You'll need to fill out a yellow speaker card and give it to staff if you wish to speak on an agenda item. Copies of the agenda and the speaker cards are located on the table just inside the main entry to the Civic Center. At this time, I'll ask everybody to silence your cell phones and other electronic devices. Thank you. There are 7 members appointed to the Planning Commission, and at this time, I'll ask each of the commissioners to introduce themselves and state the district that they're representing, beginning on my far right.
I'm Ed Nyberg, representing the Cholla District.
Good evening, Vern Crow, representing Cactus.
Good evening, Al Lennox, Vice Chair, representing the Barrel District.
Rick Harper, representing the Saguaro District.
Warren Wilfong, Ocotillo District.
Good evening, Martin Nowakowski, representing Yucca District.
And I am Gary Hirsch, the chairman of the commission, and I am a mayoral appointee representing the city at large. Let the record show that all members of the Planning Commission are present this evening. The Planning Commission receives staff assistance and guidance from the Planning Division and the City Attorney's Office. Ms. Collins, would you please introduce the city staff that are present this evening?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Diana Figueroa, our management assistant, is here this evening. George Gellert, Senior Planning Project Manager. Alex Lerma, a planner on our staff. Edward Vigil, a planner on our staff. Jim Gruber, our Deputy City Attorney, and my name is Lisa Collins. I'm the Interim Development Services Director. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Collins. If there's anyone here this evening that would like to speak on an item that is not on tonight's agenda, and because these items are not on tonight's agenda, the commission cannot take action this evening. However, items could be added to a future agenda. Is there anyone present in the room next door or in the chamber here that would like to speak on a non-agenda item this evening? Hearing and seeing none, we'll move on to approval of the minutes. We have one set of minutes this evening, the minutes of the Planning Commission meeting of June 4th, 2020. Commissioners, is there a motion?
I would move approval of the minutes.
We have a motion and a second for the approval of the June 4th Planning Commission meetings. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? The motion has passed. The minutes are adopted. Ms. Collins, do we have any withdrawals or continuances this evening?
No, Mr. Chairman, we do not.
Thank you. Then we'll move on to our public hearing items. The purpose of a public hearing is to provide interested parties the opportunity to present testimony for the Commission's consideration. We'll follow the same procedure for each item. The chair will call the application number and the name of the applicant. Staff will present their report and answer questions from the Commission. The applicant will be given the opportunity to make presentation and answer questions from the Commission. Other persons who wish to testify will be asked to do so and may ask questions from the Commission. The applicant will have an opportunity for closing comments. Staff will then be asked for any final guidance or direction. I will then close the public hearing and ask for a motion prior to discussion. You will need to state your name and address for the record if you wish to speak on an item. Please be brief, to the point, avoid repetition. The chair does reserve the right to limit the length of your testimony, and all exhibits shown to the Commission become part of the permanent record and must be submitted for the file. Large groups should designate a spokesperson. Applause or other disruptions which delay the hearing will not be tolerated. This evening, we have 6 public hearing items. The next item on our agenda is the conditional use permit application CUP 20-04. And it looks like Mr. Lerma is presenting.
Yes, sir.
Good evening, sir.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the council. Before you, you have case number CUP 20-04. The applicant has applied and is requesting a conditional use permit for a health and wellness facility within the, for personal training within the M1 zoning district. The applicant is Bailey Pfister, representing BFit Training. Here's a map showing the subject property in relation to the City Hall. The site is west of the 101 and north of Glendale, northwest corner of Glen Harbor Boulevard and Northview Avenue. Property address 7208 North Glen Harbor Boulevard. This subject property has a City of Glendale land use designation of business park. Here's a zoning map showing the subject property highlighted. Surrounding properties in relation to the subject property are also zone N1 light industrial. Further to the north, you'll see single-family residential subdivision not incorporated into the city limits. Again, just an aerial view of the subject property highlighted. Surrounding uses are those of office, manufacturing, and warehousing. Here's the site plan. The proposal, the applicant is proposing to locate within an existing building. I believe the building has 8 tenant spaces. She will be located in one of them. Site already has all improvements. The subject property is accessed through Glen Harbor, or the main access is through Glen Harbor Boulevard, or secondary access through Northview Avenue. Here's a floor layout of the tenant space. Tenant space is 3,158 square feet. While you access the tenant space, you'll see a bathroom area and an office area. Further in to the north of the floor layout, you'll see that there's an open space. Other tenants within this building are are using their tenant space for storage purposes within this open area. The applicant is proposing to use this open space for the gym equipment. The description of the proposal that the applicant has submitted is a one-on-one training, not related to everyday gyms that are open for anybody to go in. This will be by appointment only, or small groups. Here's an elevation or site photos of the site. Number one, you'll see standing on the west property line looking in. Number two, you'll see as you're standing on the east property line looking into the building. Number three as well, standing across Northview Avenue looking into the building. And the last two, number 5 and 6, you'll see from the rear of the building, which is designated for loading, the loading area. Here's the final elevation of the existing building. The applicant will be occupying the second to the last unit. The applicant has done her citizens outreach. She initially submitted letters of notification to surrounding property owners or adjacent property owners within a 300-foot radius, totaling 36 mailing or letters. The notification was posted on June 25th, 2020. Site was posted on June 22nd, 2020, and the final notification was sent out on June 25th, 2020. Through staff analysis and findings, staff finds that the proposal is consistent with the development objectives of the general plan, and that the proposed use is compatible with the surrounding uses as well. Staff is recommending approval of a CUP 20-04, subject to the following condition: development shall be in substantial conformance with the project narrative and site plan stamp approved June 5th, 2020. Mr. Chairman, this concludes my presentation.
Thank you. Any questions from the commission? Any questions? Commissioner Nowakowski, you're sure?
I'm gonna have a
Thank
heart
you.
attack.
Very good. Would the applicant or applicant's representative like to come forward, state your name for the record, and make a presentation? Good evening. Sure, yes, ma'am.
And I am the owner of BFit Trading.
Anything you'd like to add to the staff presentation?
No, thank you.
Okay, questions, commissioners? Very good. Thank you. Thanks
Thank
for
you.
coming in.
Of course.
The chair will now open the public hearing on CUP 20-04. We have 0 speaker cards. Is there anyone here this evening that would like to speak on this item? Anyone here would like to speak on this item? Seeing and hearing none, the chair will now close the public hearing for CUP 20-04. Commissioners, is there a motion?
Mr. Chairman,
Commissioner Crow.
I move that we approve CUP 20-04 per the findings and subject to the stipulation contained in the staff report.
I second it.
We have a motion and a second for approval, subject to the one stipulation in the staff report for approval of CUP 20-04. The chair will now conduct a roll call vote beginning on my far right. Commissioner Nyberg.
Yes.
Commissioner Crow.
Aye.
Vice Chair Lennox.
Aye.
Commissioner Harper.
Aye.
Commissioner Wilfong.
Aye.
Commissioner Nowakowski.
Aye.
And the chair votes aye. The motion is passed. Mr. Gruber, what are the next steps in the process?
Chair, members of the commission, your action with respect to case number CUP 20-04 is final, subject to a written appeal received within 15 days.
Thank you very much. We'll now move on to The second public hearing item of the evening, Popeyes Drive-Through Conditional Use Permit, CUP 20-05. Ms. Casalina presenting?
Actually, I will be presenting.
You're
for-
standing in, okay, well, you look lovely, so, thank you.
Thank you, Mr.
Proceed.
Chairman, members of the commission. Before you have case number CUP 20-05. The applicant is Popeyes Louisiana Kitchen Fast Food Restaurant, who has applied and is requesting a conditional use permit for a drive-through. Subject property is zoned as C2. Zoning ordinance section 5.7546 pertaining to conditional use permits, a convenience use, which will fall within the convenience use. And the applicant is Edin Corral, part of Corralic LLC. Subject property is 0.08 acres. Here again, the vicinity map, subject property in relation to City Hall. Subject property is located west of the northwest corner of Northern Avenue and 59th Avenue. Subject property has the land use designation of office in the general plan, City of Glendale general plan. Here's a zoning map with the subject property highlighted. Surrounding zonings include C2, general commercial, residential, single-family residential, R16 to the north, to the south, commercial 2 as well, to the west and to the east as well. Here is this subject property again in the aerial. The property to the west and to the east have recently been developed, and the subject property is the one that remains vacant within this small commercial subdivision. Again, here's the site, a closer view. To the west of the property is auto parts, and to the east is a car wash. Subject property, the car wash to the east, and a credit union further to the east all share the same access to the site, as you can see here, to the south of the car wash to the west, or what is the initial development of the car wash. Here's a street view of the property. Again, the property is vacant. As you can see, the car in the back, there is a private drive that is being shared by all 4 of these commercial lots. I can explain that further out through the site plan. Here's the site plan. Papa's Chicken is proposing a standalone building, 2,297 square feet, with a drive-through west of the building. Again, the main access is by Northern Avenue, with a secondary access to the rear of the lot. It gives you access to 59th Avenue. Here's a cleaner plan. This is a conceptual site plan. As you can see, the building layout and the driving aisles. Here's a conceptual elevation plans. Again, looking at the south elevation will be as if you were standing on Northern Avenue with a driving aisle west of the building where the canopy is at, the drive-through canopy. Here's the floor elevations again, or building elevations, looking at the building from the east and to the west. The applicant did the citizens outreach, initially submitting notification letters on June 23rd, 2020 to adjacent property owners within 300-foot radius, resulting in 75 letters. The project was advertised as well on June 25th, 2020. The site was posted on June 30th, 2020, Final notifications were sent out June 25th, 2020. Staff didn't receive any comments, or neither did the applicant. Through staff finding, the staff finds that the proposal is consistent with objectives of the general plan. The proposed use is compatible with the surrounding uses. Staff recommends approval of CUP 20-05, subject to the following condition. And development shall be in substantial conformance to the site plan dated May 30th, 2020, and the subject narrative dated May 15, 2020, subject to the design review approval. Mr. Chairman, this concludes my presentation.
Thank you. Commissioners, any questions? Any questions, commissioners? Very good. Thank you. I understand the applicant representative may be available electronically. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Very good. Would the applicant's representative like to come online and state your name for the record and make your presentation, sir?
Yes, hello, good evening. This is Ed Korlick with Korlick LLC. The address is 2643 Carousel Drive, St. Louis, Missouri, 63125. I am the architect of record and the applicant for this application. Alex pretty much covered it all down to the point. We're very excited to come to town and to build this development in this location. And yeah, I've really got nothing to add. Alex pretty much covered it all. I'm open to any questions anybody may have.
Thank you, sir. Commissioners, any questions? Any questions, Commissioner? Well, thank you for coming on the line. We appreciate your participation.
Absolutely. Thank you.
The chair will now open the public hearing for Popeyes drive-through conditional use permit CUP 20-05. We have one speaker card from Stella Grazzo. I hope I have that right. Greazzo. Are you here this evening? Good evening. Please state your name for the record.
Ocotillo District. I like Popeye's chicken. It's good. But my concern is, I didn't get exactly where it's going to be located on 59th Avenue and, what was that? Where's it gonna be located?
Northern Avenue.
What?
Northern Avenue and 59th Avenue,
Okay,
west of the northwest corner.
the northwest corner? Okay, northwest. So my concern is,
How many spaces?
there's a seafood place on Glendale just west of 55th Avenue, just west of Filiberto's. The traffic, when they're driving through that seafood restaurant, goes all the way out. I mean, there's a long line. And I think that's a horrible way to drive through because it stops traffic. So is that going to be the same situation where Popeyes will be located? Because there's enough traffic on Glendale, and with the traffic lights on each corner, it's like a bottleneck trying to drive through there. So where's their drive-through going to be? Is it going to be blocking traffic as they're waiting to go in and order?
Any other questions?
That's it?
Okay, Mr. Werman, could you
Any
answer that
answers?
question for this lady?
So the building layout is, as you can see here, the drive-through, again, is located west of the building. Right. I'm not sure if this thing has a pointer.
Really hard for me to get an idea.
Mr. Chairman, let me jump in here.
Please.
So on the east side of the building is where the traffic would queue, and then on the north side go behind the building. So there's quite a lot of queuing area for the traffic. And our traffic engineer, transportation department does look at these and makes a determination based on the traffic in the area and requires a traffic impact study if necessary. So I can assure you we've looked at all that. I'm happy to go over the plan additionally with the citizen that has questions about it to show exactly how it works.
So it's not going to overflow out onto Northern while they're waiting for the cars in front of them to get their order and drive away?
That's correct.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, ma'am. Is there anyone else that would like to speak on CUP 20-05? Hearing and seeing none, the chair will now close the public hearing on CUP 20-05. Is there a motion?
Chairman, I move to approve CUP 20-05 for the findings of the subject of the stipulation contained in the staff report.
I'll second that.
We have a motion and a second for approval of CUP 20-05, subject to the staff report and one stipulation. The chair will now conduct a roll call vote, again beginning on my far right with Commissioner Nyberg.
Aye.
Commissioner Crow.
Aye.
Vice Chair Lennox.
Aye.
Commissioner Harper.
Aye.
Commissioner Wilfong.
Aye.
Commissioner Nowakowski.
Aye.
And the chair votes aye. The motion is passed. Mr. Gruber, what are the next steps in the process?
Chair and members of the commission, your action with respect to case number CUP 20-05 is final, subject to a written appeal received within 15 days.
Thank you. We'll now move on to public hearing item number 3, Gabbert's Gun Shop Conditional Use Permit, CUP 20-07. Planner Vigil is presenting. Please proceed, sir.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman. My name is Edward Vigil with the Planning Department. I'm presenting CUP 2007 for Andrew Gabbert's Gun Shop. And there we go. So the request is approval of a conditional use permit to allow a Class 2 home occupation in a single-family home for the sale of firearms and ammunition in the R16 zoning district. The applicant is Andrew Gabbert. Next, we have the vicinity map. So as you can see, the subject property is north of City Hall, close to the intersection of 55th Avenue and Union Hills. And then the general plan designation is MDR5, which is medium density, 3.5 to 5 dwelling units per acre by our general plan. And again, the property location is located within the R16 zoning districts along 55th Avenue. So this is an aerial photograph of the subject location. And then this is another aerial photograph with the subject property zoomed out, showing the locations of the high school and middle school, about 1,500 feet from the subject property to the east. And this is a site plan showing the residence. The lot size is 7,386 square feet. He has access along 55th Avenue. The business that he is proposing is part-time. It is proposed to operate Monday through Thursday from 2 p.m. to 7 p.m. and Friday through Sunday from 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. by appointment only. This property is located in the Choya district. So the home occupation as defined by our zoning ordinance defines a home occupation as any occupation or profession conducted from a principal residence in a residential zone district as an accessory use. So the CUP is required in a Class 2 home occupation to allow customers to visit the site. In public involvement, initial notice was mailed out May 22nd, 2020 to property owners within 300 feet of the project boundary and to other interested parties. And again, letters were resent on May 29th, 2020. The request was advertised on June 25th, 2020, and the site was posted with a sign on June 20th. Hearing notices were mailed out on June 26th. So we have received 3 responses in writing in favor of the request, 2 responses in writing against the request, 2 responses by phone call against the request, and 4 responses by email against the request. So staff finds that this proposal is consistent with the development objectives of the general plan, that the proposed use is allowed per section 7.304 under home occupations, item B, number 3, with a conditional use permit, and the business would be regulated by the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, Firearms, and Explosives. So staff's recommendations is approval of CUP 20-07 subject to the following conditions. Number 1, that the development shall be in substantial conformance with the final citizen participation plan dated June 19th, 2020. And number 2, that the applicant shall maintain a valid City of Glendale business license. And number 3, the applicant shall maintain all state and federal licensing requirements. Number 4, the hours of operation shall be Monday through Thursday from 2 p.m. to 7 p.m. and Friday through Sunday from 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. by appointment only. And number 5, no more than 1 customer vehicle allowed at the site by appointment only. And that concludes my presentations, and if you have any questions, I'd be more than happy to answer them for you.
Thank you, Mr. Vigil. Commissioners, do we have any questions? Questions? Very good. Thank you, sir.
You're
Is
welcome.
the applicant or applicant's representative here this evening?
Yes, he is.
Good evening. Would you like to make a presentation, sir? Please state your name and address for the record.
My name is Andrew Gabbert, and my address is 18016 North 55th Avenue in Glendale, Arizona.
Thank you. Proceed.
I'm the owner of Gabbert's Gun Shop, a home-based FFL. I'm applying for a conditional use permit to allow customers to my house. I'm currently licensed under the ATF, and I'm having 2 other home-based FFLs, one in Glendale and one in Peoria, transfer the firearms to the homeowners at a cost that I pay for. 2 concerns that were noted prior to today's meeting was the distance to the school. I had spoke with my IOI from the ATF. We'll be providing every customer with a gun-free school notice with each firearms purchase, along with a lock and a Handgun Safety Act, a Youth Handgun Safety Act. So that goes above the minimum ATF requirements. The second was they were nervous about guns being sold in the neighborhood. I'm not the only FFL in the neighborhood, and I've also gone above, again, the ATF minimum requirements, including security doors, motion lights, gun safe, and cameras that I will be providing if this is approved. And all of my customers are obviously law-abiding citizens. They have to fill out a ATF Form 4473 and submit to a FBI NICS background check prior to taking possession of a firearm. And that's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions for Mr. Gabbert, Commissioners?
Yes, I do.
Okay, Commissioner Harper has a question.
Are the guns you're selling, are they mostly new or secondhand?
Yes, they have all been new. I would imagine a very small percentage would be secondhand, but most of them would be
So
new.
you get these directly from the manufacturer? your
I get
firearms?
them from distributors who get them from the
Distributors,
manufacturer.
that's my
Yes,
bad.
sir.
Okay, thank you.
Commissioner Nowakowski.
Mr. Gabbard, would you have any concern if we were to stipulate what you just said you would do, but put it into the condition here that you would provide gun locks for every customer that's sold a gun, provide safety tips? I guess the
Yeah,
NRA
pamphlets.
safety tips?
Yes.
Because I think that's very important. During this health crisis, every month since March, gun sales have spiked. And that's great. We all believe in the Second Amendment, I believe. But gun safety is something else. And it sounds like you're paying attention to that concern that I have in regards to gun safety and who's buying guns. Because first-time gun owners is who's buying guns. And there's been several accidents, I'll say. So I appreciate you saying you'd provide that. You would have no problem if we put that?
No, none at all. And,
Okay.
most of that is required by the ATF anyways, so I would have no issues with that.
Okay, then maybe we don't have to do that.
Any additional questions? Commissioner Will Fong.
Yeah, I was texting somebody here from the council member. I didn't know what the question was, but he wanted to know if you're going to keep the names of people that you sell guns to on file.
Yeah, so how that works is when they fill out the ATF Form 4473, I retain those records for life. If I close my business down, they get shipped to West Virginia to ATF, and they maintain those records and digitally upload them. But until I close my business down, I am responsible and I must maintain those records for life. So yes, I will.
Any additional questions? Commissioners? Commissioner Nyberg.
Mr. Chairman, just to curiosity, in the course of a week's time, what would be the average number of customers that would come to you?
So far, the average, I would say, since I got my license in March, would be about 4. That's average. Some weeks it's 0.
Okay, thank you.
Any additional questions? Commissioner Nowakowski.
A major concern I always had is the delivery of weapons to your residence. How is that if you purchase a gun and it's, let's say, being delivered through
To
UPS?
being delivered to a dealer such as myself?
Yes, how is that?
So they get delivered 3 ways usually. Postal Service, UPS, or FedEx, and they're all signature required by an adult over 21 with my gun shop being on the address and my name. So, I've got to be home to receive the gun. If I'm not, they do not leave the gun. They load it back on the truck and they try again the next day.
That's what I needed here. Thank you.
Any additional questions? Okay. Thank you, Mr. Gabbard. The chair will now open the public hearing on Gabbard's Gun Shop Conditional Use Permit CUP 20-07. I have no speaker cards. Is there anyone present here or in our adjacent room that would like to speak on this item? Anyone like to speak on this item? Hearing and seeing none, the chair now closes the public hearing on CUP 20-07. Commissioners, is there a motion?
Mr.
Yes.
Chair,
Commissioner, I have one more question. Okay, too late.
Okay. Let's have the question, and then we do have a motion pending.
Is the list of customers available to the city and the police? Also by selling, whoever they're selling and buying the guns?
We'll need the applicant back.
No, there is not going to be a list of customers provided. I don't think that's fair to the customers.
It's not required by your big gun shops.
The ATF and the FBI both have name, social security, all of the information from the buyer, but typically that stuff doesn't get released to anybody else.
Sorry about that.
Very good. No problem. Commissioner Harper?
I said we pass CUP 20-07 as listed with any stipulations, if there were any.
Second.
We have a motion and a second for approval of CUP 20-07 per the staff report and the 5 stipulations. Chair will now conduct a roll call vote, beginning on my far right. Commissioner Nyberg,
Aye.
Commissioner Crowe,
Aye.
Commissioner Lennox,
Aye.
Commissioner Harper,
Aye.
Commissioner Wilfong,
Aye.
Commissioner Nowakowski,
Aye.
and the chair votes aye. The motion has passed. Mr. Gruber, the next steps in this process.
Chair, members of the commission, your action with respect to case number CUP 20-07 is final, subject to a written appeal received within 15 days.
Thank you. We'll now move on to agenda item number 4, Evergreen 101 and Bell, GPA 20-02 and ZON 20-04. The items will be heard contiguous, but we will have 2 separate votes for the GPA and the ZON. Mr. Gaylord, you were presenting?
Yes.
The floor is yours.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Members of the commission, good evening. George Gaylord, Glendale City Planning Staff. I'm here to represent the application GPA 20-02 and ZON 20-04 for the Evergreen 101 and Bell Road project. The request before you is in 2 parts once again. The first part is a general plan amendment from OFC or offices to HDR 30, which is high-density residential, 30 units to the acre maximum. Second part of the request is a zone change from commercial PAD to a residential PAD. Project size is 16.10 acres. The applicant is Shane Ellman for Tiffany and Bosco, PA, representing the Glendale Bell 101. This is a map depicting the location of the site, about 7 or 8 miles north of City Hall along the northwest corner of Bell Road and Loop 101. The Glendale General Plan designates this portion of the city as appropriate for offices as depicted in the graphic. It's that small pink sliver there at the corner of the city. Just west of the 101, just north of Bell Road, and to the west is the New River flood channel. This is the depiction of the current zoning map. Again, this is located just at the absolute west boundary of the north portion of the city. It's a prior PAD zoning and annexation in the recent past, fairly recent past, but it protrudes just beyond what was formerly the west boundary in this location. Again, you can see the Loop 101 corridor there, kind of intersecting that sort of curving configuration of 83rd Avenue north of Bell Road. Areas to the east are all zone PAD. Further east, you can see in the picture, is part of the Arrowhead Mall planned area development. This is an aerial photo depicting the subject property. It's kind of a linear format. It's about 1,000 feet long. And again, it's sort of pinched between the Loop 101, 83rd Avenue, the New River flood channel along the west side of the boundary. Again, once again, north of Bell Road. This is a depiction of the site plan that the applicant has provided in association with the submittal for the Evergreen 101 and Bell Road project. Again, it's a very linear configuration. This is turned counterclockwise. North is to the left of the screen at this point, and that's Bell Road over there on the right end of the property. The site includes 4 L-shaped buildings, 4 stories, 60-foot maximum height, a density proposal of about 26 units to the acre. Part of the site plan, they've designated 418 multifamily units. Primary access for the site would be developed along 83rd Avenue, somewhat west of the Loop 101. There's an additional access point along Bell Road, but that was to be reserved only for emergency access purposes. And again, on the slide here, you can see the New River flood channel, which actually encumbers a good portion of this property to what would be the west side, the bottom of the screen. The history of the site itself, it was previously known as the Palm Canyon Planned Area Development, approved by the City Council about 14 years ago as ZON 0409. This is a site that was never developed. It's been vacant for 14 years beyond the zoning. The applicant is forwarding the submittal in support of a general plan amendment and zoning change, basically, because, well, the thought is that this really is not a good site for commercial development after all, that it's really more given to residential development. And again, that's kind of based on the configuration and the way it's sort of trapped between those corridors. Very little access opportunity in this location. This is a little bit better picture of the site. You can see the Arrowhead Mall, obviously, to the right of the screen, to the center, Loop 101, 83rd Avenue, and the long the long configuration of the subject property itself. That's about 1,000 feet long. I'm trying to recall how wide that is, but mostly what you see here in the picture is commercial development on all sides of it, with the exception of this residential area here along the northwest boundary. This is a shot of the 83rd Avenue frontage at the north end of the property. In the background there, you can see the proposed site of the access along 83rd Avenue. And this is the south end of the property, just west of the 101. Very little opportunity for access development here, but ADOT has agreed to the installation of I believe it would be a right-out only emergency access. The applicant mailed notifications to adjacent property owners on April the 24th to within 300 feet regarding a neighborhood meeting, virtual neighborhood meeting that was conducted on the proposal May 11th. The site was posted on June the 23rd, hearing requests advertised in the Glendale Star on the 25th, and hearing notices were also mailed out by staff on the 26th regarding the hearing this evening. We have received some comments on this proposal. Some of them just curious, some of them sort of in opposition. The citizens' participation plan is included in your packet. I believe it outlines most of them. We've also received a couple of notes beyond that point. I believe you have them as part of your packet. I believe they've been passed to you at this point. The economic development supports the requested change of land use. Basically, we're giving up some commercial, what had been commercial development or commercial acreage in favor of a residential development. Overall, staff believes that the planned area development proposal would result in a quality development product which is consistent with the general plan and furthers the public health, safety, and general welfare of the citizens of Glendale. Staff therefore recommends approval of the request, both GPA and the zoning request, subject to the following stipulations. Number one, development of the site in substantial conformance to the Evergreen Loop 101 and Bell Road PAD submittal dated June of 2020. Two, any modifications to the river need to obtain preliminary approval from FEMA. The city will require that a conditional letter of map revision, CLOMR, be submitted to the cities of Glendale, Peoria, and FEMA for review and approval. The city will also require that once constructed per the approved CLOMR and LOMR, will need to be obtained from FEMA, updating the flood insurance rate map. No building certificate of occupancy can be obtained until the LOMR is received from FEMA. Three, implementation of traffic study recommendations regarding off-site improvements at the access point from the development onto 83rd Avenue intersection, southbound 83rd Avenue right turn decel lane, as well as northbound 83rd Avenue left turn lane. In addition, a two-stage left turn out of the site will need to be constructed by the developer, requiring modifications to the existing raised median north of the site. The developer will be responsible for the cost of all the required off-site traffic improvements. All half-street improvements on 83rd Avenue adjacent to the site must be completed with development of the property to the right-of-way center line. Required improvement standards determined by the City of Glendale design guidelines for site development and infrastructure construction. 5, right-of-way improvements will also include streetlights at the property frontage, 6-foot wide sidewalks on arterials, an ADA accessible route connecting the site to 83rd Avenue right away. 6, approval of minor land division application, which is actually a lot tie, to combine all parcels. Forgot to mention, this is overlapping about 7 different parcels that need to be joined together. Number 7, submittal of signed Proposition 207 waiver. And 8, we've made some adjustments to stipulation number 8. I believe you were copied on this earlier. Design review for all physical development associated with the proposal. Submittal should consider a sound attenuation plan as required by the Municipal Code, Section 7.704 and 7.705, and adjustment to the coverage allotment. Mr. Chairman, that concludes my presentation. I'll be happy to respond to any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Gillard. Commissioners, do we have any questions? Commissioner Crowe.
Yeah, Mr. Gellert, what did the traffic study tell you in regards to the ingress and egress number of folks that'll be coming in and out of there on a weekly, or excuse me, daily basis?
I can't really respond in detail regarding the traffic study. I can tell you what the recommendations are from the Transportation Department regarding the access development, the decel lane. Were you addressing specifically 83rd?
Yes. I'm basically interested in the number,
Oh, the numbers? I don't have them in front of me.
because obviously with 400-plus apartments, you're going to
Yes.
have probably 600 cars coming in and out of there on a daily basis, I would say, at a minimum. That's a lot of traffic coming in and out of that one
Yes.
spot.
The Transportation Department has reviewed the traffic study, and these are their recommendations in response to the traffic load from that proposal.
Mr. Chairman,
Commissioner Crowe.
did we ask once before to have the traffic study included in the packet?
Frankly, I don't recall.
I think we
have some
did,
time to read them.
or at least the numbers, like a summary sheet, not the entire study, probably.
Commissioner, Ms. Collins?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, Commissioner Crowe, the traffic studies are generally a fairly thick document, but we could in the future provide the executive summary or something that sort of summarizes
Right.
why the Transportation Department feels that the study was adequate. So we can definitely do that in the future.
Yeah, just a summary, even if it's just one page with numbers, so that we can, I'm guessing that there's 600 cars in a facility that big. I don't know, but it would be nice to be able to see that.
Thank you for addressing that, Ms. Collins. Commissioner Crowe, any additional questions?
No, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. Commissioners, any other questions? Very good. Thank you, Mr. Gill. Would the applicant or applicant's representative like to step forward and make a presentation? Good evening.
Good evening, Chairman, members of the commission. I do have a presentation tonight with some slides. I'm happy to go through those. I want to be sensitive to your time as well. I'm happy to go through those if you'd like.
2.5 hours? That'd be
Yeah,
fine.
about that. Maybe 2 hours, 45 minutes, so. I can be brief.
Are we good with the Reader's Digest version?
We're good.
Okay.
Yeah, I think I can give a little bit of context, and then I would like to show you some of the details that aren't in the packet that are going to be included as part of our design review. So I think that's important so you can see the quality of what we're presenting. Do you mind if I have the clicker?
And I'm going to ask you, if I didn't, to state your name and address for the record.
All right, for the record, Shane Alleman with Tiffany and Bosco, 2525 East Camelback Road. And what we have before you tonight, the application, is the culmination of a lot of work that's happened over this past year. And I would be remiss if I didn't express my gratitude to staff and all of the departments of the city for working with us and giving us input. This is, the iteration that's before you is not the first one, and we were able to take that input and refine the product and come forward with a product that we think and a development that we think makes sense for this area. We also appreciate the recommendation of approval that's before you tonight. So as we click this one right here. That one. Not going. Maybe we can just forward it. I'm fine with that. Now it's going 2 hours and 50 minutes, just a heads up.
Better to be short. Thank you.
And if it's too much, we can just have George click it. I trust him. Yeah, okay, very good. Yeah, so this is the, of course, the 17-acre site that we have. And what you see, and George explained this, this is part of a PAD that was done in 2007 for the area. And what's happened over the years is, as this PAD came forward, was all of the development came in around at the commercial office, and this was slated for office, and you can see this is the donut hole that's left over. And one of the reasons is I've talked to people that have marketed this and brokers that it's a challenge for the existing commercial use is that the shape of the lot is very unique. You have some challenges with the Clomar-Lomar that up the cost of the site on the west side next to the wash, and you've got some constraints with how the elevation is, the slope is with infrastructure. And so all of those costs, people have just skipped right over it for the commercial just because of the costs associated with it. And so what we've been able to come forward with is a product of development, a multifamily development, that will be able to take in those financial costs into consideration and also create something that makes sense for this area. It's bringing in a product that fits in with the commercial and fits in with the business offices around it, and bringing those people to the area as a complementary to these use. And so one of the things I wanted to show you here is the site plan, and this is a better colored version that we've shown. And I just want to highlight some of the features. I think George talked about the access points to it, and what we're providing is a distinctive, high-quality multifamily of 418 residential units that are going to be marketed to young families and professionals and empty nesters. 3 to 4 stories of the buildings. On there, the open space, I believe the required is 15% for multifamily. We're coming in with 40% open space with that. So a high percentage of open space to the area, including trails and connective trails for people to come and connect throughout the site. We have one large amenity area to the north of the site, which includes a pool, clubhouse, lounge areas, shading ramadas, and then at the south end, we also have another amenity area with another pool, cabana area, and lounge areas and shading. We also have tot lots and dog parks that are interspersed throughout the area. And then because we have the wash, the New River Wash to the west of us, we were able to add a component, a trail that connects from 83rd down to Bell Road. So it creates a multi-use trail that can be used by people for exercising, for walking, for getting out. And with that vegetation, it also creates, with that berm that's there, that we have to create with Clomar and Lomar through FEMA, we also be able to create a nice amenity there on the west side, which creates a nice buffer to the wash that's there to the west. These are just, I wanted to show you some of these images that we've been putting together as we're getting ready for our design review, so you can see the quality that's coming with it. Here's just the entry. Here's some of the amenities in the pool areas that are provided for the residents. Here's just a mock-up of the pool area that we put together, the trail amenity area with the vegetation, and then just some of a closer look at the vegetation and some of the architectural elements that are added to it. And so we did notify all the property owners. We had about 5 neighbors attend our virtual meeting. There were questions about the open space and wash and buildings and traffic, and so we were able to address those questions that were brought before us. Peoria Unified School District, of course, is supportive of it, and staff is in support of the application with stipulation, and we've agreed to all of those stipulations. And to address the traffic, I do have the counts here on the the peak hour for it. And we spent a lot of time, in fact, this has been through a number of iterations with Tony Avo in your traffic department, and making sure that we have all our improvements in line to, that comport with the traffic that is coming here. And our AM peak hour, the calculations were 186 trips at AM peak hour and 211 at the PM peak hours. That's the peak hour of the day, both AM and PM. So those are the numbers that I have here. But as George said, we spent a lot of time, our traffic engineer, with Tony Avo, in making sure that we were providing the improvements that comport with the site and with what we're providing here. And if there were issues, I know that we would hear those comments from Tony. He's very thorough. And at the end of the day, with all the revisions that we did with the traffic engineer, we met the requirements of the city. So with that, I'm happy to answer any questions that you might have. I apologize that my client could not be here. He had some health challenges that he was not able to make it here, but he is on the phone listening in. But we're happy to answer any questions that you might have.
Thank you. Commissioners, any questions for? Okay.
Thank you.
You bet. I have some questions that perhaps are really directed toward staff. So stand by, we may need you. We received an email from a Mr. Jason Mallett, who is a resident in the area up there, and he expressed three basic concerns. In general terms, he's thinking that this may be the same property that was subject to some zoning action a few years ago relative to Becker Billboard. And I remember that, all of that, but I don't remember the property. Are you aware or not if this was in fact the same property?
I believe that Chairman, members of the commission, I believe that it was, and it was for the billboards.
Yeah, and I do too. So I think that lends a little merit to his concerns. And I'll just paraphrase these briefly. But concern number one was relative to flood control and the ability of the city to manage a mishap there. And in my view, that's been answered by stipulation number 2 with the Colmar Lumber and FEMA. So I'd like to, if Mr. Mallett is watching this evening or listening, I think we can give you some comfort that issue has been addressed. Concern number 2, in a word, traffic. And again, I think that stipulation number 3 requires a traffic study. Commissioners chime in if you read this any differently, but I think that we've adequately addressed his concern there. And number 3 was basically noise and sound barriers, which I believe stipulation number 8, which addresses sound attenuation, probably addresses that head on. So again, Mr. Mallett, if you're watching, I think that the applicant and staff have worked together to provide good answers to all 3 of your questions. So with that, unless you have something to add.
Chairman, I would agree with that. Okay. And again, it goes to the staff for working with us on those stipulations.
Well, this was such a thoughtful, polite, nice email that I wanted to make sure that we addressed it head on and thank this citizen for his interest and inquiry. Okay, with that, we'll let you stand down. Okay, the chair will now open the public hearing on GPA 20-02 and ZON 20-04. We have one speaker card. Mr. Ken Watt. Mr. Watt, if you're here this evening, I see him making way. Good evening, Mr. Watt. You're welcome to come to the podium there, and please state your name and address for the record.
My name's Ken Watt. I'm a resident of Peoria, 17421 North 83rd Drive, and it's Peoria 85382. I'd like to start out by saying I actually have questions, and I wanted to make points. My wife and I were one of the couples that attended that meeting that the representative referred to earlier. So we still had some questions. We also want to strongly state, and I haven't met anybody in the Bell Park neighborhood. We're on 83rd where it connects with Coolbrook. Probably doesn't help too much, but just know that our backyard is the New River Channel. In fact, our yard, talking about the billboard, our house was, the billboard was going up directly behind that. So we're very familiar with the issues that were brought up there. And I don't know how many of you commissioners were present and voted on that. But when we get to the city council, we're gonna remind them of this. I would point to each and every one of the people who spoke against the billboard project. We're going to contact them and ask them to be present. They all had different reasons why. This is obviously quite a bit different. One single big pole with a flashing light on it, basically, compared to 1,000 feet.
You're getting short on time, sir.
Okay.
So I want to encourage you to move it along.
First thing I want to say is we're definitely against the project. The points, I won't go over what the gentleman brought up about the traffic. I know that there was concerns with the traffic. You're saying that they've been answered. You're going to provide something from the sounds of it so that we can see that. Nobody that lives in that area believes you're going to be able to put that kind of a property at 83rd and Bell and not create major problems, especially with the one entrance. The other thing is you're going to change the whole effect of the area. Right now was in the billboard process, we got it to extend a scenic corridor. Well, you can forget the scenic corridor because this is going to make it a lot worse looking than the billboard. Also, it's 4 stories high. My understanding when we bought our property, the current business or commercial zoning allowed for a 2-story office building. Now, they've told us it was 3 stories, so that's one of my questions. Is it currently zoned for a 3-story office building or a 2-story? The 4-story is going to do exactly what the billboard did to us. It's going to be up above our property, so when we're in our backyard, we're going to see all those apartments and so forth. So the way I would end this, as far as my points is that there's nothing that is improving the area from a scenic standpoint. So what's the purpose of the scenic corridor? And it is going to cause massive congestion with the note heavy on the fact that if you go walk that property, then picture 418 units on that little bit of property. It's like an island, literally. It's going to be very narrow. Can't imagine it's not going to cause flooding problems, et cetera. So I'll end with just saying that we're against it, and the only questions, if they can answer them, are on the size of the current office building, whether it's 3 stories or 2 stories. Did the scenic corridor, did that protect anything from this being built there? And then what were which you said you're going to give us the traffic, the traffic studies, some kind of a summary, so we can have that ran by our group that we're putting together to get a second opinion. So I think that's it. Appreciate your time and look forward to hearing the answers to the questions I had.
Thank you. You're right on time. Well done. Well done. We'll see if we can't get some follow-up for you on your questions. I have no additional speaker cards. Is there anyone present or in our room next door that would like to speak on this item this evening? Anyone else would like to speak on this item? Seeing and hearing none, the chair will now close the public hearing for GPA 20-02 and ZON 20-04. Commissioners, is there a motion?
Mr. Chair, I make a motion that we approve GPA 20-02 as written.
Support.
We have a motion and a second for approval of GPA 20-02. I think we need two separate motions, correct, Mr. Gruber? Okay. And that would be as written, correct? Okay. We have a motion and a second for GPA 20-02 as written. The chair will now conduct a roll call vote, beginning on my far right. Commissioner Nyberg.
Aye.
Commissioner Crowe.
Aye.
Vice Chair Lennox.
Aye.
Commissioner Harper.
Aye.
Commissioner Wilfong.
Aye.
Commissioner Nowakowski.
Aye.
And the chair votes aye. The motion has passed. Mr. Gruber, what are the next steps in the process?
Chair, members of the commission, your action with respect to case number GPA 20-02 is not final. Your recommendation will be forwarded to the city council for further consideration.
Thank you. Chair will now entertain a motion for ZON 20-04.
Chairman, I move to approve ZON 20-04, subject to the following stipulations.
I'll second that.
Okay, we have a motion and a second for approval of ZON 20-04, subject to the 8 stipulations.
Yes.
Okay, very good. We'll now conduct a roll call vote, beginning on my far right. Commissioner, I beg your pardon, Nyberg.
Aye.
Commissioner Crowe.
Aye.
Vice Chair Lennox.
Aye.
Commissioner Harper.
Aye.
Commissioner Wilfong.
Aye.
Commissioner Nowakowski.
Aye.
And the chair votes aye. The motion has passed. Mr. Gruber, our next steps.
Chair, members of the commission, your action with respect to case number ZON 20-04 is not final. Your recommendation will be forwarded to the city council for further consideration.
Thank you. We'll now move on to agenda item public hearing, Phoenix Cement ZON 20-05. Mr. Gaylord is presenting.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the commission. The case is ZON 20-05 for Phoenix Cement. There's a two-part request once again. This involves rezoning approximately 55 acres from planned area development to planned area development with a special use district overlay. The function is to enable an inert materials landfill and a sand and gravel mining operation with an expiration date of 2038. Second part of the request is amending an existing special use district overlay just to the south of this location in planned area development and light industrial M1 zoning districts to extend the timeline for mining operations an additional 5 years, also to 2038. The applicant is Gamage and Burnham for Phoenix Cement. This is a map depicting the location of the site, somewhat south of Glendale Avenue along the east side of 115th Avenue. This is an area designated by the Glendale General Plan as appropriate for business park uses. This is a map of the zoning of the area. Once again, the southeast corner of Glendale Avenue and 115th Avenue. Areas to the west are actually unincorporated at this time. To the north is zoned A1. To the east is zoned M1 and PAD. What you're seeing there on the screen is a depiction of a larger planned area development that goes back some years ago that provides for a business park use on a 200-plus acres that would include the larger triangle there depicted just below this red arrow, includes this entire area right over here. And the portion in yellow are the parts that are the subject of the applications this evening. The one to the north, the northernmost parcel, the ZON 08-14, that's the part we're here to add the new special use district to. The area south of there already has a special use district and a sand and gravel operation underway. This, once again, is the subject property depicted to the southeast corner of Glendale and 115th. You can see the areas alongside of it. To the east is the Glendale Airport. Other areas are developing or undeveloped at this time. Most of them are in large lot configurations, rural development. Little bit better picture of the site. There's no development on the site per se. What's happening here is a series of lots are being excavated and materials processed on the site or being removed from the site as part of the operation. This is quickly just a brief look at the site. It's vacant at this time. This is Glendale Avenue looking south toward 115th. That's the intersection there to the right of the screen. And this is further south along 115th toward the southern end of the property, the access to the sand and gravel operation. Looking east along 115th to the barriers along the road and the excavation, one of the excavation sites in the background. And just looking back toward the intersection at Glendale Avenue. That's the subject property to the right of the screen. Just quickly on the history of the site, this was annexed, I believe, in about 1983. In 2009, the City Council rezoned the northern 61 acres to planned area development, which permits the 61 acres to be used for a business park and light industrial uses as part of a 217-acre master plan development. The other part of the action also rezoned the southern 99 acres to M1, as you can see depicted on the screen here at the southern portion of the site. Light industrial. In 2013, December 10th of 2013, the City Council approved ZON 1305, a special use district overlay on the south part of the property. Once again, the essence of the request this evening is to add a special use district to the 55 acres to the north with an expiration of 2013. The second part of the request would extend the existing SUD to the south for this area from 2033 to 2038. Basically, you'd have the same kind of operation for the same timeline, terminating in 2038. The applicant mailed notice regarding the request to property owners within 1,000 feet of the site on February the 18th. The site was posted January 23rd and advertised in the Star on the 25th. Hearing notices were mailed out by staff on June 26th. We have not received any comments on this proposal. Findings. Section 6.505 of the City of Glendale zoning ordinance requires that a special use district shall not be granted unless the use is compatible with existing and planned uses and should not be detrimental to increased automobile traffic or impact on the circulation system of the adjacent neighborhood. 2, excessive noise or light generated from the site. 3, excessive scale or height in relationship to the surrounding properties. 4, their hours of operation. 5, inadequate parcel size to provide appropriate buffering or mitigation to the surrounding properties. 6, disruption of the development character of the adjacent properties. In our review of this proposal, staff finds the request conforms to these standards and recommends approval subject to the following stipulations. Number 1, dedication of additional right-of-way on Glendale Avenue to provide a half-street width of 65 feet. We've added from the center line of the roadway 75 feet from the monument line. Shall be made before any permits are issued for any development on the property. Number 2, all half-street improvements on Glendale Avenue adjacent to the site shall be completed prior to issuing any building permits for development on the property. Required improvement standards are determined by the current version of the City of Glendale engineering design standards. Number 3, development shall be in substantial conformance with the development booklet dated April 17th of 2020. Number 4, all lighting on the site is required to be placed downward and fully shielded. Number 5, the applicant shall notify the City of Glendale Water Services Department of any changes to the mining reclamation plan should there be any modifications prior to or during mining operations. 6, applicant is, is responsible for complying with all requirements of the Glendale City Code, Chapter 18, Section 12, landfills, prior to beginning operation of the inert landfill. 7, all requirements of ordinance number 2868, NS, not modified by this request, shall remain in effect. Number 8, all requirements of ordinance number 3019, NS, not modified by this request, shall remain in effect. Number 9, a developer to provide documentation to the city prior to final approval of construction documents and/or issuance of permits that Form 7460-1 is filed for the development and that the development received a no-hazard determination from the FAA. 10, letters of determination issued 2019, November 27th, 2019. Aeronautical study numbers 2019-AWP-13499 through 13505. 11, developer and operator must comply with any terms required in the no hazard determinations, such as installing and maintaining any required lighting. 12, if temporary equipment used during construction exceeds the height of the permanent structure, a separate Form 7460-1 shall be submitted to the FAA and a no hazard determination obtained prior to construction start date. And 13, the builder or its contractors must contact the airport prior to construction if they're using cranes so that we may issue a notice to pilots. This is prior to when cranes will be on site. Mr. Chairman, that concludes my presentation.
Thank you, Mr. Gaylor. Commissioners, do we have any questions?
I do. Chairman.
Commissioner Wilfong.
On your stipulations 1 and 2, the right-of-way, the half streets, what are we talking about there? Are these deceleration lanes or acceleration lanes that are going to be installed on that intersection?
Let's see. That's having to do with the dedication of the right-of-way along Glendale Avenue and the half-street improvements on Glendale. I don't have a delineation of the improvements in front of me, but
Can we specify that? I mean, we're talking about cement trucks coming out of this property, correct?
I'm sorry. The street improvements would come with the development of the business park. It really won't follow with the sand and gravel operation.
So what exactly does that mean?
There's no building permits required as part of the sand and gravel operation that's underway currently or that's proposed. Right now, there's material being mined and removed from the site. Some of it's probably being processed on the site. That's an activity in advance of the ultimate development of the business park. When permits follow for the development of the business park, we would determine the level of improvement, the type of improvements at that point in time, including the access onto Glendale Avenue.
I would just want to make a notice of if they are going to make improvements in that intersection, that they do have a deceleration lane and a acceleration lane for vehicles merging onto Glendale and exiting Glendale.
Was there a question in there? I'm sorry.
I just made a statement.
Okay, okay. Mr. Gaylord, is it fair to say that if, prior to any building permits or plan development for the industrial park, that would require a traffic study at that time? Do I understand that?
To be honest, I'm not acquainted with the early history of the business park. There may have already been a traffic study that resulted in these comments here, but this would still have to go through a design review process, and we would address that again at that time.
This is a current sand and gravel operation that is underway and has been ongoing for a considerable time. Is
Yes.
that correct? And we're not introducing anything that would modify the access or egress on Glendale Avenue at this time. Is that correct?
No, yes, sir.
Okay. Thank you. Commissioners, any other questions? Commissioner Wilfong, good?
Yeah, I'm just wondering if with, you're mining gravel and dirt, but you're trying to turn this into a cement plant, right? Is that what the intention is?
Long-term, my understanding is a business park. Right now, and this is fairly common.
I'm just
especially-
sort of more concerned about the increase in traffic, because there's going to be more trucks on there. That's what I'm trying to address that. And, just awareness, you might say.
I understand.
Maybe the applicant can help us with the nature, a little more of the nature of their operation. So any additional questions for Mr. Hewitt? Okay, with that, then, we'll ask the applicant or applicant's representative come forward, state your name for the record, sir.
Mr. Chairman, members of the commission, good evening. My name is Stephen Anderson. For your record, my address is 40 North Central in downtown Phoenix. I am with the law firm of Gammon & Burnham, and we represent Phoenix Cement. With me this evening from Phoenix Cement is Frank Turk. Mr. Chairman, I don't believe that there is any community interest on this proposal, just as there was not in 2016 when we did the prior expansion. Thank you. I do have a detailed presentation that I can give. However, if the commission is so inclined, I can instead simply provide a very brief summary and address Commissioner Wilfong's questions about stipulations number 1 and 2, your preference.
Commissioners, summary? Okay, consensus for summary. Thank you. Proceed.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the commission. So just in terms of the quick summary, as the chairman just pointed out and as George confirmed, this proposal is for an expansion of an existing operation. The expansion is an expansion of footprint. It is not actually an expansion of activity. The activity that occurs on the site today, it will continue into the future. So there's no proposal for anything to occur on the site that is not already permitted. Frank, I believe you've already got a cement plant operating within the site, do you not? Yes. So there's no intent to increase the traffic generated by the site. The narrative indicates, and your staff report also contains the numbers for this site, indicating that there's about a little bit less than 80 trips per day. We share the intersection of 115th Avenue, which is a signalized intersection, 115th Avenue in Glendale, with the city landfill. That's quite intentional. The idea is that with the truck traffic, you want to have a signalized intersection so that that truck movement is occurring in a safe manner. And for the past 6 years, it's been our experience that we've been able to do that. Our neighbors are all industrial or are city-owned, and sometimes both. The landfill's the big neighbor. The water treatment plant's to our south, the airport's to our east, and we've tried to be a good neighbor, and for the past 6 years, we think we've done that. We've operated responsibly, maintained our commitments that we made as part of our operations, which I can detail if the commission would like. I do want to spend some time, since there was a question from the commission, and also because we've been working on them this week, stipulations number 1 and 2. So appreciate the staff taking the time to work with us on refining those stipulations this week to get them what we think is right. Stipulations 1 and 2 actually serve different purposes, and so I want to talk about the different purposes of the 2 stipulations. Stipulation number 1 has to do with an expansion of Glendale that is a city project. The city is actually planning an expansion, widening and improvement of Glendale Avenue that they're going to undertake. So this is a city-financed project. As part of that project, the city needs 2 things from Phoenix Cement. The first is they need some right-of-way. And so the city's asked us to provide 10 feet of additional right-of-way as part of this project. That is what stipulation number 1 specifically calls for, and we're happy to do that. So that's the purpose of the dedication. It's not for decel or acceleration lanes because we're not changing our traffic pattern. It's for this city project to widen Glendale Avenue. What is not included in stipulation number 1 as part of this Glendale improvement project is that the expansion of Glendale Avenue on the north side of the road, adjacent to the landfill, is going to shrink the ability of the landfill to drain the landfill, which, as you all know, is a massively high earthen structure, if you will, which has obviously pretty substantial runoff needs for when it rains. They've got to make sure that they're doing their thing right. Because the roadway is expanding, they're losing some of their drainage capacity. They've asked Phoenix Cement if we can provide a drainage basin on our property. So they're going to run a pipe underneath the improved Glendale Avenue onto our property and provide a drainage basin for their drainage on our land. That will require a drainage easement. All of that has been verbally agreed to between the city and Phoenix Cement. But we aren't yet at the agreement stage because the design is still being done. So we got a handshake, but we don't have a design. We're just waiting on a design, which is a city project. Once that design is done, the city will be able to provide details on how that drainage basin is going to work. So stipulation number 1 does the dedication part, and then we've got a handshake on the drainage basin. So to be determined. Stipulation number 2, as staff indicated, is about what happens in the future when the property develops. The property in this area, or the soil in this area, is not great quality for development. You might know that we sit at the confluence of the 2 riverbeds, the Agua Fria and the New, and the soil is very silty. When we did the original approval back in 2013 for this sand and gravel operation, that soil report was provided to the city. The whole idea behind the sand and gravel excavation is that we come in behind and we reclaim the property after we do the excavation. And that reclamation makes the future development of the business park possible. So that happens 20 years or so into the future whenever we're done. And so stipulation number 2 is simply a reminder that when that happens, when the property actually goes into vertical development, it will be likely that some additional improvements such as acceleration and deceleration lanes will be required at that time. We're fine with stipulation number 1 and 2 and all of the other stipulations as drafted. And with that, I will be happy to address any questions or comments that the commissioners may have.
Thank you. Any questions, commissioners? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
The chair has, we're going to open the public hearing, pardon, for ZON 20-05, and the chair has no speaker cards on this item. Is there anyone present or in the adjacent room that would like to speak on this item this evening? Anyone that would like to speak on this item this evening? Seeing none, the chair will close the public hearing on ZON 20-05. Is there a motion?
Mr. Chairman,
Commissioner Crowe.
I move to recommend approval of ZON 20-05, subject to the stipulations contained in the staff report.
I'll second it.
We have a motion and a second for approval of ZON 20-05, subject to the 13 stipulations noted in the staff report. The chair will now conduct a roll call vote, beginning on my far left with Commissioner Nowakowski.
Aye.
Commissioner Wilfong.
Aye.
Commissioner Harper.
Aye.
Vice Chair Lennox.
Aye.
Commissioner Crowe.
Aye.
Commissioner Nyberg.
Aye.
And the chair votes aye. The motion has passed. Mr. Gruber, what are the next steps in the process?
Chair and members of the commission, your action with respect to case number ZON 20-05 is not final. Your recommendation will be forwarded to the City Council for further consideration.
Thank you very much. We'll now move on to the final public hearing item this evening. That's Glen Lake's major general plan amendment and rezoning application, MGPA 20-01 and ZON 19-17. And I'd like to remind the public and the commissioners that we are taking testimony on this item this evening. We will not be voting or taking a motion on this item tonight. So with that, I'll ask Director Collins, are you making the presentation?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and members of the commission. Let's see. So this is the request for what is being called Trevino at Glen Lakes. It is a major general plan amendment. I'm also going to be presenting the zoning case that would go along with this. It is obviously two separate items, but it tends to make more sense if I can combine some of that information. And as you stated, there is no vote this evening. Major general plan amendments do require 2 public hearings by the Planning Commission, so this is the first public hearing. So the graphic that you have before you is the vicinity map showing the subject property at Northern and 55th Avenue in the adjacency to City Hall, which is to the south. So again, this is a public hearing, and there's no action required this evening. There's 2 items I'm going to be going over: the major general plan amendment, which is from parks open space to medium density residential, the general plan designation being 3.5 to 5 dwelling units per acre. The second item is a rezoning. The land is currently zoned A1 agricultural, and the proposal is for R16. That's single-family residential, planned residential development. So the general plan shows the site here. The next slide shows the general plan existing and proposed. Again, POS, Parks Open Space, and MDR 5, which is medium density residential, 3.5 to 5 dwelling units to the acre. So this plan shows the property and the surrounding zoning. So the existing zoning is A1 agricultural. The proposal is for R16 PRD. So the site plan that's being proposed has been superimposed to give you a perspective of how this would fit into the area. The white areas are lots being proposed. The grayish areas are the open space. This proposal does propose 173 lots and 10-plus acres of open space linear park around the perimeter. Surrounding this is R16 to the west and east, R4, which is multifamily, to the north, and then on the south side of this, which is the north side of Northern, there's some commercial and multifamily, again, residential. On the south side of Northern, we see Walmart, Zone C2, there's a credit union, and then there's Manistee Ranch, PAD, with some lotting configurations that are similar in size to the proposal. So I did want to show you the existing parks in the area too. The city has 81 parks in total, and they range in size from 0.2 acres to over 1,000 acres. These are the parks that are in the area. It's approximately 28 acres, and the proposal for the city park that would be part of this is 10 acres. So that would be 10 additional acres. Street view photos. This slide shows how the following street views fit into the presentation. So the first slide is going to show shots from the northwest corner. The second set will be the northeast corner. The third set will be the southeast corner, and the fourth set will be the southwest corner. So this is the northwest corner and showing in all directions from that location. This is the northeast corner, again showing, looking at all 4 directions. This is looking at the southeast corner in all 4 directions, and the southwest corner in all 4 directions. So this is the site plan that's been supplied as part of what would be the planned residential development. The planned residential development does require pretty significant detail. It requires landscaping, entry theme, walls. So this is what's being proposed to meet that requirement. The housing products are also required to be supplied. So these are the housing products that have been provided as part of this application. So the public notification postcards have been sent for a variety of things. We had neighborhood meetings in December of last year, so postcards were sent on December 9th for an open house that was held on December 17th. We had an additional open house on January 7th, and cards were sent out on December 20th for that event. December 27th, more postcards were sent out for a anticipated Planning Commission hearing, but at that point, there was a determination that this would be processed as a major general plan amendment, so that hearing date was postponed to bring us into the schedule that is outlined by the general plan for submittals between February and April, and hearings to be held by the City Council between October 1 and December 31st. So we're in compliance with that. The notification was sent out for this hearing on June 26th. So that was for our hearing this evening on July 16th. There's also another hearing that was noticed, and we're going to be following up on the specific time and location of that hearing. We're obviously having difficulties, and I do apologize for the change that went about this evening. It was primarily due to two things. One, we needed to have a hearing at a remote location, so the city's aquatic facility was considered. The technology is not as robust as we would want, and there is a limit on the number of people that could be there. We thought we would go to City Hall then and do all of this virtually. Then the determination was made that it would obviously be best to have people in person if they so chose to be here, which brought us to this venue tonight. The next hearing, required public hearing that we have on this needs to be at a different location. So we won't be able to meet here. There could be additional hearings where the decision is made, and that could be back here. But all that stuff remains to be determined. And so I did just want to share that with you to let you know that it's a little complicated, and we're working through it and doing our best to make sure people are notified. So this was advertised June 25th in the Glendale Star. And this type of request, major general plan amendment, as you know, can only happen once a year. There can be multiple cases. We only have one, the Glen Lakes case. But whenever you have a major general plan amendment, 60 days prior, letters have to be sent out to jurisdictions in the surrounding area and other agencies. All those letters were sent out on April 10th, and we've gotten no response from those. So the findings that have been determined on this case is that the proposal provides residential and open space land uses and is consistent with the surrounding areas. As I showed in some previous slides, the residential developments range from single family to multifamily to PAD. And there's commercial development, which provides services to residential developments in the area. Now, the next few slides I'm going to go through talk about the general plan findings, because that's part of the requirement to talk about the general plan and how we're meeting the requirements. I'm also going to go through the planned residential development findings, even though that's a separate part. It's probably best to view these together so that we can get a clear picture of what is being asked for. So growth and development is one of the general plan elements. Land use is one of that's the theme. One of the elements is the land use. The traffic impact analysis is necessary to ensure circulation is safe for the traveling public. So that is required just to make sure that, as has been mentioned in the past, do we need deceleration lanes? Where do we need signals? Those kind of things are all being looked at and will be presented to you. Housing element is another element, and it's determined that this does provide a new neighborhood that could encourage other investment in the area. The housing type and site plan proposed in the zoning planned residential development promotes interaction between the new and existing neighborhoods, in particular with the park that is surrounding, the linear park that's surrounding the proposed development. Additional findings are relating to community preservation and revitalization, and this does provide infill development to enhance existing neighborhoods. The economic development theme provides new development to revitalize a property that was costly to the city to maintain. The connectivity theme does provide a continuous walking path, and a public park is being proposed. Additionally, when we look at public facilities, a letter of adequate school facilities was provided to the city, so there has been identification that there is adequate public school facilities. And then environmental sustainability, the city of Glendale does place an emphasis on new technology, and we do encourage recharging devices for electric vehicles in each home, and that's a practice that we've been engaging in the last several subdivisions that have come before you. So the next set are the planned residential development findings, and these outline those findings. The proposal is consistent in substance and location with the development objectives of the general plan and any specific area plans. The proposal is compatible with other existing and planned development in the area. The proposal meets or exceeds the city's subdivision design expectations regarding site planning, architecture, landscaping, building materials and colors, and screening of mechanical equipment. And the proposal will result in a quality living environment and accommodate desired lifestyles. The proposed project amenities will include pedestrian trails, bike paths, landscaped areas, entry features, decorative theme walls, parks, playgrounds, and other public or commonly owned open space that are adequate and appropriate for this development. And the type and quality of housing products will be consistent with the intended character of the development. Again, this is a public hearing. This is the first required public hearing. No action is required. And with that, I'm happy to answer any questions you may have. I know you've got a fairly complete packet of information that goes into a little more detail than the presentation did. Again, I'm happy to answer any questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Collins. Commissioners, any questions this evening for Ms. Collins? Okay, well, being that the city is the property owner and the applicant, we've heard from both staff and applicant. So with that, the chair will open the public hearing for MGPA 20-01 and ZON 19-17. I have cards from individuals who do not wish to speak, and just very briefly, Cindy Meyer and Philip Corey opposed the application. Rick Canhill opposes the application. Fred Bennett, I believe it's Bennett, opposes the application. And Rick Canhill, okay, on the other, 1917, and same on the other. So we've got everybody covered. I have one speaker card from Ms. Stella Grazo, who wishes to speak this evening. So Ms. Grazo, if you're with us, why please come forward, and I hope I have your name right this time. Welcome back. We know who you are and your address, so you may proceed.
I'm sorry for that, but
No.
okay. I'm going to jump around. So notices are still posted in the Glendale Star. I've never seen the Glendale Star. So when you don't have comments on one of your amendments here, nobody sees the Glendale Star. Where else are they being posted? I know you're doing your due diligence, like having these meetings for residents to get up and speak, but I believe everything we say falls on deaf ears. You had neighborhood meetings, residents were not happy about the golf course and having it developed, and I just feel that it doesn't matter what we say, you already signed on the dotted line to go ahead and develop. I'm still not sure how many homes qualify for low, medium, and high density. And you talk about traffic surveys. I don't believe the figures these surveys come up with. Let's see here, I'm going to be jumping around. Adequate school facilities. You don't know people moving into a development, how many children they're going to have in each household and what their ages are. So you don't know the impact of how many kids will be in each school for the elementary or the Glendale Union School. And how does that impact the teachers having more students within that classroom? Let's see, what else? You know, people talk tonight about quality developments. Do you realize all the traffic all these developments are bringing to our city? And you can't even keep up with the streets, improving the streets or what you have right here, but you're building. You continue to build, and you continue to have cars, like somebody said, on 83rd Avenue and Bell. You see the traffic there already. And you're adding how many more homes and developments? So I just don't know where this is going except to be disastrous. And then under the staff findings and analysis, the proposed amendment furthers the public health, safety, and general welfare of the citizens of Glendale. How is that? How does that equal happy residents in Glendale and, you know, safety and general welfare of the citizens? How does that happen? Because you're developing that golf course into residential homes. And what's the price range of these homes that you're proposing in that area? Anyone? Can anyone answer that?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman.
They're not very attractive either.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I do not know the price of the homes. Their Homes by Town is the developer that is proposing to develop the site, and I'm happy to see if I can get that information, but I do not have housing prices at this time.
Okay, you're about timed out, ma'am.
All right, thank you.
Okay, thanks for coming in. We appreciate your remarks. All right. Is there anyone else that would like to speak? I see a gentleman coming forward. I'm going to ask you, if you would, to be sure that you fill out a yellow speaker card and turn that in before you leave chambers, our
That's waving.
unofficial meeting room. Not sure you heard me, sir, but I do need to ask you to fill out a yellow speaker card.
I did, I turned it in.
And your name was what?
Fred Beyer, B-E-Y-E-R, 5214 West Harmont Drive, Glendale.
I mispronounced your name, sir, and it was checked that you did not wish to speak, so
Nope,
I
I
beg
wanted
your
to.
pardon.
That's okay.
Go right ahead, you have 5 minutes.
Well, when this was first proposed and you wanted feedback from everybody, you got it. The overall majority was no. We don't want it developed. You still proceeded ahead. We were told, oh, 90, 100 houses at the most. Now it's 173. Also, now I'm hearing multiple family pads. Does that mean apartments? Because that was up there. They said no apartments. The question I have is the housings all around there are zoned for 2.5 to 3.5. So how is changing it to 5 DU units per acre going to fit in with the rest of the neighborhood? That looks like that sounds like cookie cutter houses to me. You know, if you drive through those neighborhoods, a lot of those houses are unique. They have bigger yards. That was part of the draw. So you went from maybe 100 that we were told, 100, 120 maybe at the most, to 173. That's almost double what we were originally told. And so doing quick math, that's 350 cars on average in that little space. I live right there in Harmont, which is right near where they are proposing an entrance to that housing development. We already have cars speeding down Harmont and Royal Palm, going to those apartments and everything else. And you're going to increase traffic by over 350 cars. And on the last presentation, you were talked about traffic and how it would affect neighborhoods. That's going to affect the neighborhoods because there's no main access off of Northern Avenue. It's going to be 55th or 53rd Avenue. And so those houses along each of those are going to be impacted by that, by those increased traffic, because there's no direct access from Northern, correct? So when did it go from 100 to maybe 120 at the most to 173 from the last meetings that I was at last summer, when they rammed it down our throats saying, we want to hear from you, but we're still going to do what we're going to do, because that's what you're still doing. You know, it's all trust us, trust us. At least you're not putting apartments in there, because my wife was going to make me move if you put more apartments in. But that's almost double what we were originally told. Do we have transcripts from the prior when they were originally talking about developing? I mean, you're keeping the park, and I know it's going to foregone conclusion that the golf course is gone. But again, that much density in that small of a space, how is that going to improve the neighborhoods? How is that going to improve the cost? 55th to 59th, those are historic homes. The Suggs Division to the east, we moved in there when I was 5. We bought the house next to my father. We've been there for over 43 years. That's almost an antique or historic as well. So putting new cookie cutter houses in the middle of that is not going to improve property values or aesthetics. We were told that these were going to be upscale, increased property value, unique places we want to live. People are still going to want to come, I guarantee that. But is it quantity over quality? That's the question I have. Because right now it sounds like it's quantity over quality. That's all I have for now.
Okay, well, we appreciate you coming in. I would like to put you and other individuals in the public, put your mind at ease. The Planning Commission is not the applicant. We're not an advocate for or against the application. We're hearing the application and then make the best possible determination that we can as to what's in, one, does it meet the legal requirements that the city has in place? And two, is it in the best public interest? So I do want to assure you that we truly are here as impartial judges, if you will, on this matter. I'm not aware of any predetermination by any commissioner. There's a lot of time that goes in behind the scenes as we look at these projects. And, your input's important to us, and we really do appreciate you coming in, and I respect you taking the time. But, I want to assure you and other members of the public that our function is not to be an advocate for the city or any other applicant trying to make a project happen. Our job is to make a determination based on the laws and codes and rules that we operate under. So I hope that at least gives you some peace and solvency that you're looking at 7 pretty objective individuals that really want to do the right thing.
Oh, I understand that, but we went from, again, 100 to almost double.
Yeah, and I
that number.
appreciate that concern. I just want you to know that that does not originate with the Planning Commission. We're taking information in, we're not generating information. That comes from staff, it comes from the applicant, the property owner, the developer, but not from us. Our mission is to absorb that information. So I didn't mean to get into a dialogue with you. I just wanted to give you some peace of mind that, you know, we are impartial, that we're here to listen and consider the facts, and we have at least one more public hearing before we take any action. So again, thanks for coming in, sir.
I mean, I appreciate you hearing, and everyone says they want our input, but it feels like it's not valued. It's just kind of a afterthought because
Well,
it's a foregone
speaking
conclusion.
for the seven of us, I can't tell, you know, I can't address previous meetings you had with other individuals, but speaking for the seven of us, I can assure you, we're listening and we appreciate it. So thank
then
you.
I have a last question, if you don't mind. Do you have the power then to say no, not MDR 5, but 3.5?
We will make the final determination, and we're not close to a vote yet, so we've got to hunker down a little bit on, you know, what we can and cannot do. But
But do you have that
approvals-
ability?
We have the ability to
Okay.
say no and we make a recommendation to council. They ultimately have the power to determine whether they want to
have the
adhere to our recommendation or not.
Okay, because I wanted to, I've always believed if you can't tell me yes and only tell me no, then I'd rather go up to the next level. But if you can say, yes, we can make that recommendation, that it not be 5, that it be 3.5 MDR, then I appreciate that.
We can make recommendations, and our recommendations go to council, and then they ultimately decide whether they want to follow that or not. So,
Okay.
okay, thank you,
Thank
sir,
you.
appreciate it. Do we have anyone else that would like to speak this evening? Okay, come forward, sir. Good evening, sir. Have you filled out a speaker card?
Yes, I have.
Okay, and your name was?
Rick Tannehill.
Okay, I apologize, sir. I saw on here a box that said you did not wish to speak, or I would have called you by name.
I thought that box was I do want to speak,
That-
so that's why.
That's okay. I got it, and you're good. So please,
Okay.
just your name and address for the record, and
Yes, Rick-
you have 5 minutes.
Rick Tannehill, 5410 West Diana, for the last 30 years. I'm really disappointed in the way this whole thing has gone. First of all, whoever sent out the green card saying this hearing was going to be at the Coyote Room of the Aquatic Center tonight and failed to follow it up with a change notice should be severely reprimanded, if not fired. I found out about this at the very last minute by calling City Hall. We've held several preliminary hearings. Lisa was there. The last one in December filled the auditorium at Glendale American School with people ready to lynch the poor lady. She understands. The entire neighborhood was against doing away with that golf course and turning it into housing development. The city has done what we would call a self-fulfilling prophecy with the golf course, giving a little history. When it was first built back about 1980, surely the demographics of the neighborhood were a little different. People were probably a little younger moving in. The demographics have changed. However, there's no other golf course for a long, long ways away, number one. And number two, the city, I believe, has intentionally let it deteriorate. And as it deteriorated, fewer and fewer people came, including me, to play golf. And that decreased the revenue, which gave the justification for, well, let's just get rid of it and build a bunch of houses or townhouses. And so, as I say, I think it was almost a self-fulfilling prophecy what's happened here. Even though there is other parks in the city, quite a few scattered here and there, no other large open public space areas exist. And I would hope the city would reconsider and turn that back into a viable golf course, I can still hack a few holes, you know. Get out there and play if it were opened again. I used to play it. I'm a duffer, you know. But a lot of us enjoyed that on weekends, and I think we would again. I have concerns about whether Toot Toot the Railroad was in on this thing from the beginning. In other words, if all these hearings, specifically last December, were pro forma. You know, here it is. Everyone hopes, I hope you like it, because we're going to do it. And we've all in the neighborhood had that feeling, probably several hundred that filled the auditorium there. What I would recommend is at this point, and I talked to my councilman about this, whether other open space uses for the entire acreage were considered, and the answer was not really. Rather than just have 10 acres in the north end as public open space, and that neighborhood desperately needs a lot because we really don't have much right around there. The Canal Homes to the north where I am, or the Suggs to the east where the previous gentleman was. Send it back to council with some other suggestions to use it as open park space, perhaps a baseball diamond there for Little League or something, in addition to other park uses, tennis courts and so forth. But to just take the entire acreage and say 4/5 of it is going to be homes, and we don't know how expensive they are, and oh yes, it appears they might be townhouses besides, not just single-family detached. I think that's a bad plan at this point. And I would sure hate to see that course go. I've enjoyed it in the past. I know a lot of other neighbors have. We don't want to see the increased traffic of 173 homes more in the neighborhood. That's not what we were promised when the first discussion started. So again, my recommendation is to return it to council for further study on how best to use that as an open space for the neighborhood.
Very good. Thank you, sir. Your timing's good, and appreciate you coming in. Is there anyone else in the adjacent room that would like to speak on this item this evening? Anyone else like to speak on this item this evening? Anyone else want to speak? Okay, I think I see a gentleman moving. We'll stand by here for just a moment and see if this gentleman's coming our way. Okay, apparently they were leaving and not coming over to speak. So with that, do you know something I don't, Commissioner Harper?
I saw someone standing in the door, that's all I was wondering.
You sure you're not imagining something?
I probably am by now.
Okay, final call. Is there anyone else that would like to speak on this item this evening?
Someone's standing.
Okay, we have one more speaker. We have a speaker card. Thank you, ma'am. Good evening. Please state your name and address for the record.
My name is Marie Solari, and I live at 5124 West El Caminito. And I live right by the golf course for 42 years. And I'm also a realtor for 36 years. And when they're telling us all this rhetoric about how this is going to make our houses worth more money and how this is going to be so valuable to us, no. It's not going to be valuable. It's going to be actually a problem for our area. Our values will go down. I mean, we're sort of the stepchild anyhow because we have these big houses on big yards compared to a 40 by 100 that they're going to put houses on. And 173 houses on 34 acres, plus a park, come on. You know how ridiculous that's going to be? And they're frame houses on top of it. So I'm sorry, I can't go with the idea. Now, if they came up and they said, wow, we're going to build 100 houses on a quarter of an acre, they're going to be block homes, they're going to be beautiful, they're going to be 2,000 to 3,000 square feet, that might enhance our neighborhood, not what they're doing. So I just wanted to speak up, and I love what that lady said, and I loved what Mr. Byer said, because we all feel the same way. So with that, I thank you.
You know, we appreciate you taking the time and the effort to come in, ma'am. Thank you. Much appreciated. All right, we have a card from Mr. Fred Byer.
Mr. Chairman, Fred Byer already spoke.
Okay. And I got a double card somehow. Very good. Thank you for straightening me out there. Okay, well,
Chair, after the speaker, we also have 2 audio clips and an email.
okay. Good evening, sir. Before you depart, if you could fill out a yellow speaker card for the record, please.
He's got it.
Okay, and then you can state your name and address for the record. Thank you.
Frederick George Byer, B-E-Y-E-R. That was my son that came in before.
Okay, gotcha.
5210 West Harmont Drive, Glendale, Arizona, 85302. And then when they ask that on the telephone, I always say, continental North America, planet Earth. Just a brief little story. In 1979, the golf course was up for sale. The original owner had a Texas development come in. I was chairman of the Board of Adjustments of the City of Glendale. I called the case. A very prominent attorney in Phoenix was the representative. I asked him I wanted to see his application. He said, why? I said, I need to see your application. He said, well, you've got one. I said, yes, I need to see yours. I asked counsel if I could see his application. They said, yes. It was not signed or notarized. So I informed him that he could not talk for the owner. And he said, well, Mr. Byer, you know me. I've been up here before. He says, can't you make an exception? And I said, counsel, you know better than that. I've lived in Glendale since '63. I've been a taxpayer since '65. My current lot is 12,000 square feet. Not all the lots are that big in the development, granted. But a 5,000 square foot lot is not going to have much room for much planting, picnics. Just look at the picture of what the houses are going to look like. Look at the lots. There are some big ones in the corner, but the majority of them are going to be small. The houses are going to be 2-story, which is fine. They'll have 2 stories there, but where we are, there's probably 6 stories, 6 2-story houses that they've added since the development. It's not compatible with the rest of the area. We're not trying to be hard asses. We're just trying to protect our investment. We were criticized at the meetings held at the American School because we're quote, unruly.
That's because they weren't doing what they were supposed to do for us at those meetings. You are a conduit for our views to the council. And like somebody else said, I've almost come to the conclusion that this is just a charade. They're going to do what they want to do, no matter what the public says. I'm sorry to keep you, but thank you.
We appreciate you coming in. Thank you, sir. All right, last call. Anyone else like to speak on this item this evening? Seeing and hearing none, the chair will now close the public hearing for MGPA 20. Pardon me?
I think she said she had a couple.
Oh, okay, we'll put those in the public hearing, and thank you, Commissioner Harper. Yeah, we have a couple of recorded statements. We'll do that in the public hearing then.
Yes, my name is Loretta Vest. I'm married to Lawrence Vest, and we are in the Beryl District on Harmont Drive. And I would like to say that we're voting no to change the general plan and a strong no to incompatible densities. This is regarding the meeting to change the zoning to allow a developer to develop 173 lots, which I'm not in favor of. So my say is I'm saying no to the general plan and a strong no to incompatible densities. Thank you.
This is for the Glendale Lakes agenda. Phil Erickson, Beryl District, 51st Avenue and Northern Area. Chairman Hirsch and Commissioners, the Mayor, the City Manager, and the majority of the city officials have not and still are not ethical or transparent with the citizens of Glendale. The city-owned Glen Lakes Golf Course since 1979 is a prime example. The decision to sell the golf course was made December 11th, 2018, without ever asking the citizens of Glendale their opinion. The first public meeting called by the city was to tell the citizens how many houses were to be built, size of the lots, and the entire plan. The citizens loudly voiced their opinion. No housing development. We want to keep the golf course. At the next council meeting, Councilman Joyce Clark chastised the Glendale citizens that were at the meeting for the way they loudly objected to the city plan. This is a great example of the city officials telling the citizens what they are going to do without first bringing it to the citizens. Glendale is gaining a reputation and a new motto. We will listen to you, then we will do what we want. Don't let the city of Glendale take Glen Lakes Golf Course away from the citizens. This piece of land has been a golf course for years, not just some plot of land that was just annexed for a housing development or a commercial purpose. It is a golf course, and let's keep it as a golf course. Some city officials reported that golf was a declining sport. While Glendale supported Top Golf coming into the Westgate area, along with PXG, Parsons Extreme Golf, a 3,900 square foot boutique located in the Westgate Entertainment District. With the corona pandemic, golfing is the only outdoor recreational activity that can be done meeting the safety standards. We do not need another housing development in central Glendale, especially on land that the city bought as a golf course. deny the rezoning, and refer the golf course land back to the city to keep and maintain the Citizens Golf Course, which the city had conveniently neglected for many years. Quoting City Manager Mr. Phelps from the Glendale Star, July 9th, 2020, article, Jobs Brewing in New Frontier. Quote, the New Frontier will generate revenue that is important for the city so we can continue to invest in our core services like public service, parks, and libraries. End of quote. Funding should not be a problem for the city to improve and maintain Glen Lakes Golf Course. Thank you for your time and for your support. Stay healthy and safe.
Thank you. Ms. Figueroa, do you have a statement that you want to read into the record as well?
Yes, please. Comments on Glen Lakes by Jane Buckman. Regarding the Planning Commission meeting, the notification process is flawed. Citizens are confused and have read conflicting information about the meeting location, which has been changed 3 times, now to the Glendale Civic Center. Citizens rely on correct information from the green notification card or on the public hearing notice signs posted at Glen Lakes. The green notification card and the public hearing signs both incorrectly list the location as Foothills Recreation Center and not the Glendale Civic Center. It is requested that both the MGPA 20-1 public notice be republished and public notice signs be changed to reflect the correct date, time, and place for both public hearings of MGPA 20-01. I am speaking as a member of the Glen Lakes community that has been fighting to keep Glen Lakes as a golf course. I'm also an original member of the Save Glen Lakes group that has worked at creating community awareness for Glen Lakes as a golf course at risk for being shut down. We did not know the city's plan to shut down Glen Lakes that began in 2017 when we learned about declining revenues at the golf course being a risk to its future. The citizen solution for Glen Lakes was to hire a company to turn around the golf course, but the city still failed to promote, advertise, or offer any programs at Glen Lakes. Supporters of Glen Lakes worked toward finding solutions to keep the golf course. We presented the city with a plan to make the golf course sustainable. We found volunteers who donated $3,000 of materials and services at Glen Lakes. A youth golf program was found, and it was offered free to the city, but was declined as the city did not add any new programs. The business community offered to make improvements at Glen Lakes, and they were rejected also. There were 2 neighborhood meetings conducted by Chris Anaradian. He said the city's goal was to leave behind at Glen Lakes something that would not be negative to the neighborhood. Promised was similar density housing, similar to existing neighborhoods. Today, the developer has presented housing of 173 lots, but it is not similar density to our neighborhood. Similar would be more like 90 to 120 lots, a big difference. And the dedicated public park of 8 acres, a linear park that served as a retention basin with a couple of mini playgrounds. This park will be shared with the new gated HOA community. The HOA will have no designated open space and will use the public park instead. The public park of 8 acres is where this community of 173 homes will recreate and walk their dogs, along with people from communities surrounding Glen Lakes. It sounds like a busy place, doesn't it? My community is losing precious open space as infill occurs around us. A total of 453 homes will be built in the Glen Lakes area within the next 2 years. We are a 40-year-old neighborhood. Many of us are seniors and are original homeowners who had no plans to move away. Once housing takes over, gone will be the 42.8-acre green space, the nature scene, the birds, and wildlife. Our landscape and our quality of life will never be the same.
Thank you. Do we have any additional statements to read into the record? Okay, anything else, Ms. Collins?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I did just want to make one clarifying statement since a couple of speakers brought this up, that they felt there were multifamily homes being proposed, and it may have been my slide that I presented. The intent was to show the surrounding areas, that there are single-family homes in the surrounding area, multifamily homes, and PADs, not that this property was going to be that. So I just wanted to clarify that because I heard that a couple of times. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Appreciate the clarification. With that, having no further public comment, the chair will now close the public hearing on MGPA 20-01 and ZON 19-07. There is no motion and there is no vote on this item. There will be at least one more public hearing at a time, date, and location to be determined. And I would encourage the public to monitor the city's website for proper agenda and publications. The COVID situation has been very liquid. It has caused the need for a little more flexibility on the behalf of staff and the commission and the public than we would normally hope for, and we appreciate everyone's patience. But, you know, we have to deal with that. The rules have changed from time to time, and with that, the city has to adapt not only the Planning Commission meetings, but other meetings as well. So with that, I ask Ms. Collins, do we have any additional other business this evening?
No, Mr. Chairman, thank you.
Okay, commissioners, any comments, suggestions this evening?
I have one.
Oh, Commissioner Harper.
No, regarding the Glendale Star, we've, Ms. Collins, Mr. Gruber, they do not have an open circulation. If you want to see the Glendale Star, you have to go to a commercial building where they drop them off. Does that fit the requirements of posting these meetings and things? Commissioner Nyberg and I are still waiting for our refunds because we used to get it in the mail and we donated, they just quit. And so I'm just curious because the one lady said, well, she's never seen it or could get it. And I think that's a disservice that, you know, are we breaking a law because it's not being posted in a publication?
So, Mr. Chairman, Commissioner Harper, and Mr. Gruber may want to weigh in on this too. The requirement is to post notice in a local newspaper if the city has a local newspaper. And we do, but it's a challenge, and it's frankly a challenge for the staff. We have to submit notices about a month in advance in order to get into the publication. And so that's some of the problems that we run into with not being able to renotice and resubmit notices. So while we meet the legal requirement, we do our best to then notify people if things change. But it is a challenge. We do from time to time use the Arizona Republic. But that's something I think that we're looking into, particularly in terms of just online newspapers. So I appreciate your concern, and it's something that we know we need to look at, and I can get back with you if anything changes. And if Mr. Gruber wants to say a few words, I'm happy to have him do that unless I covered it.
Chair, members of the commission, nothing really to add other than that the Glendale Star meets with the current legal requirements, and the city is compliant by running its notices in that forum, even if we're maybe frustrated with it from time to time.
Okay, thank you for addressing that. Any additional comments, Commissioner? All right, with that, do we have a planning staff report this evening?
No, Mr. Chairman, we do not.
Okay, well, the next meeting of the Planning Commission will be held at a time, date, and location to be determined. So again, urging the public to continue to monitor the city website for official information on location and meeting times. I'd like to remind pet owners with as warm as it is out, to please make sure that you have adequate shade and plenty of cool water for your outdoor pets. And with that, the chair will ask for a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to adjourn. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? We are adjourned.